Hi again, folks. This is your serial cynic, and I am here to talk about a particular subject. And you would never guess what it's about. What did you say, the Hebrew Israelites? How did you know? How did you know? Anyway, it's about them again. Um, yeah, because quite a few of them have been coming into a video of mine, and I tried to find it a little bit earlier, but I'm using my wife's laptop over here. My computer is repairing itself over here, so I'm trying to figure hers out. And of course, I don't understand her computer, so it's gonna have to sit here for a while. I can't remember which. Oh, I was trying to find a video earlier that everyone seems to be coming in under, but I can't seem to find it. Yeah, I can't. Oh, yeah. The video is called Is Deuteronomy chapter 28 talking about black people? No, no, no. It's a video I did sometime last year. Quite a bit of people have been coming into that video, and I've had some people who came in and told me to shut the hell up, basically. Others have told me I need to go read my Bible. Some have been pretty nice. Doesn't really matter. But talking about the Bible, that's part of what I want to talk about. Now, I've mentioned some of these things I'm going to mention in my various videos, but I think I'm going to do one video right now. I can't remember all the things I put up in there in these videos, but I'm going to go ahead and speak about it at this point right now and try to see if I can put everything together. Because I know you guys are going through the different videos and you might be hearing different things. I'm going to try so I can do a video and just put everything in one video in terms of my objections to Hebrew Israelite ideologies. As I said before, and I've said it in a few videos, I didn't set out to set up this channel to be talking about Hebrew Israelites so often. Again, when I started this channel, they happened to have been a very popular topic in my Facebook newsfeed. And I started engaging because I happened to know about the Hebrew Israelites from about 20 years prior, because I had two friends that were in there. One of them managed to get away from a particular Hebrew Israelite congregation in Georgia. But of course, during the time I was talking to her, I was learning about who they were back then. And I realized that there were some things fishy about what they were teaching. At the time, I believe I was still a Christian. So what they were saying led me to do a lot of research and try to find out what was what. Of course, I'm no longer a Christian, as you can see from some of my other videos, which makes this all the more appealing to me at this point. But anyway, I've known about them 20 years or more since then. I had another friend who was involved. He went from the Hebrew Israelites to some other weird cult that was a bit of Nation of Islam, a bit of Christianity, a bit of Hebrew Israelite, all mixed up together in one gumbo stew. But anyway, I'm going to start about my objections here, things that I've mentioned in my various videos, but I'm going to try to put it in this one video because I noticed that more and more people have been coming in to object to some of the things that I've been saying. Anyway, the first thing that Hebrew Israelites use to justify what they're talking about, excuse me, this is my daughter's room, so excuse all the pictures you're seeing on the wall. But one of the things that they use, I guess you can say the primary source, is to use the Bible. And they use the Bible as evidence to prove whatever their ideologies or whatever they're out there saying. I find that a little bit interesting because one of the things about Hebrew Israelites, and I guess you can say black people in general, is that we know what we have gone through as a people. My ancestors, through the harsh realities of slavery, to the Jim Crow era, to us still living beneath where we should be as people respected. as we should be as a people. Still in so many places and in so many cases we're like the bottom rung. And it's been tough. It's been tough on us as a people, and we're still finding ourselves pushing ourselves against the wind. So what Hebrew Israelites do is that they use the Bible, notably Deuteronomy chapter 28, as proof that we are descendants of, or the original peoples in the Bible were black people who were related to us. And they make distinctions, as I've mentioned in my other videos, that there are black people, but what they're trying to say is they're a group of black people who descended from Noah's son, known as Shem. Thus, us, Negroes on this side of this world, as they say, that we are the true Hebrews. Then they look at the other black people who are in Africa, people native to Africa, even though, of course, a lot of these Jews that they refer to are native to Africa also. But they make a distinction that there's a group of Africans who descended from Noah's other son, known as Ham. So they call them Hamitic Africans or Hamites, but they call themselves Shemites or Semites, basically saying they descended from Noah's son, known as Shem. Now, they go ahead and they use the Bible, but in one of the videos that I put up, it was this. We talk about the hardships. We talk about all the injustices that have been done to black people. We talk about all these different things that has gone on with us. Now, there's two sides to this. One, the Hebrew Israelites basically say, which is what I'm going to talk about next, they basically say we're deserving of the judgment that is coming up on us right now. Bottom rung, the least of all people, the prejudice, the racism, all the struggles we've gone through are because we have not followed the ways of God, or as they say, Yah or Yahweh. We have not followed his ways. And the reason why we have been going through this for what seems like eons now, but for thousands of years, for hundreds of years, it's because we fail to follow what God says. But my thing is, if that's the way we feel, and we feel that this is just judgment that we're deserving of, why are we out there so angry? Well, some of us. Why are we out there so angry at the white folks? And for all that we've gone through, why are we angry? Supposedly, this is our destiny, right? This is what you're telling us, that we're going through these type of things right now because in Deuteronomy chapter 28, there are curses. And these curses have been inflicted upon us by our God. Again, that's Hebrew Israelite theology. That's what they believe. That all that we're going through have been inflicted upon us because we have forsaken the ways of the God of the Bible. So my thing is, if this is what we're deserving of, why are we out in the street corners yelling and screaming at white folks? You're getting what you deserve, right? That's what you're saying. You're saying that your ancestors did not live up to what they were supposed to live up to, or they did not honor their part of the covenant. And this is now their punishment. And of course, that the punishment has fallen upon their descendants, us. And that's why we go through what we go through. So my thing is, why are you down the street on 34th Street or 42nd Street yelling and screaming at white folks walking past? They're just instruments in your punishment, right? That's one side. So, of course, think about that. Just really, really, really think about that. Before you start running your mouth and coming in here and yelling, just think about that. Really think about what I just said and see if it makes any sense to you. The second thing is, if we are angry, and we rightfully should be, if we are angry and we're out there carrying on, look at what the white man has done to us, look at what the white man has done. Think about that Bible that you're using to justify your beliefs. Let's go back a little bit. Do you realize that if we follow the Bible, just going by what the Bible says and believing it at face value, which of course I don't, but believing it at face value, there are some things in that Bible, especially with those ancient Israelites, Hebrews coming out of Egypt, according to the Bible, they did some things or had some really crazy, wild rules out there. Wasn't it Joshua, when they came out and crossed over into the promised land, who exterminated the Canaanites and bragged about it and says, I have not left any of them breathing? Didn't the Israelites come into the land of Canaan, which was not theirs, was never theirs? Even when their forefather Abraham came into the land, the Bible says he was a stranger in this land. His descendants eventually made it down to Egypt. And that's where the Hebrews blew up into a great multitude of people. Supposedly Moses led them out and brought them to the cusp of the promised land, Canaan. Again, there were Canaanites living in there. There were people living in there, in Canaan. Here comes the Israelites according to the Bible. They invaded the land of Canaan and basically just went on the offensive and just started slaughtering left and right. Again, if you believe what the Bible says. So, for the Hebrew Israelites who are talking today and who claim that those people are their ancestors, have you checked out what they were doing according to what the Bible says? They were doing some atrocious nonsense also. Came into the land of Canaan, wiped out the Canaanites, killed them off, and basically committed genocide. That's your ancestors that you brag that you're part of. So what if today, what if years later, what black people have gone through, what you claim the curses are, what if what's going on with us right now is our punishment for what we did to the Canaanites, and it's the Canaanite gods that are cursing us or punishing us for what we did to them? But forget about that, because of course that's really crazy, because I don't believe in anybody's gods. But this is the Bible you're taking to justify your beliefs. So if you believe in this Bible, don't shove that part under the rug. Look at what your ancestors did. I guess you're going to say it's my ancestors too, because I'm a black person living on this side of the world. But look at what your ancestors did. There were commands given in the book of Numbers, I believe it is, or Deuteronomy, that if another person, even if it's your family member, comes to you and tries to turn you away from God, Yahweh, you, the family member, it doesn't matter who it is, grab hold of that person and kill them. Yeah, it's in the Bible, because they're trying to turn you away from God. There are other parts in there where it basically tells the Jews, the Israelites, if you come up against a nation, now I'm not saying it ever happened, but it was in their rules of engagement. If you come up to a city and you besiege the city, you tell the people to lay down their weapons. And if they don't, then you just go in, take over the city, kill off their women, kill off everyone, and grab everything you want and just leave the city. Because they did not listen to your request to lay down their arms. So here you are, a wandering people, a nomadic people, coming to the land of Canaan and just wreaking havoc, again, according to the Bible. These are supposedly your ancestors. So what they did back then, again, according to the Bible, if you believe the Bible, what they did, or what they decided to do, or what they were commissioned to do. Now we turn around and look at black people's experiences today and find out same things were done to us. Comma. You say curses. Comma. Again, this is me going along with your narrative about believing in the Bible. The next thing is, Hebrew Israelites are fond of telling me, and I see it in some of my comments here, it's like, hey, you know why the book of Deuteronomy is speaking about us? What other people have gone through what we've gone through? What other people do you know have gone through what we have gone through? Tell me, what other people do you know have gone through what we have gone through as black people? Look at Deuteronomy chapter 28. Look at the curses. It's talking about us. And what I've said in one of my videos there, it's, okay, great, if that's what you believe. But why in the world would I, as a black person, walk around with that as a badge of honor? Hey, I'm a Hebrew Israelite. Look at me living the curses. That makes no sense to me. Why would I be proud of something like that? Why would I point to something like that as like an identifying or identifier to say, see, because I'm going through this and I'm going through that, and because my people are going through this and going through that, and all these horrible things that the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28 talks about, that means it must be us. We're God's special snowflakes because look at us, we're being cursed. That makes no sense to me. Followed by this, you mean to tell me that these curses were issued 5,000 years ago? They were issued way back then. Here we are, way into the future. You mean to tell me that the God of the Bible is that petty that he's still out here holding on to a grudge from way back when, that he's still punishing us? And you want me to go ahead and honor this God? What kind of petty nonsense is that? He can't get over it? He can't forget? He can't say, man, you know what? It's been like about 5,000 years now. I think it's time for me to get off these people's backs. No? And then what it turns out to be, it's like, we're never going to get it right because you're never, ever going to get all the black people on this side of the world, or wherever you think they are, wherever the Hebrew Israelites think we are. You would never get all of us to come to a consensus to follow the God of the Bible. There will always be a few that do and a lot that don't. So we'll never collectively come together to then reverse these curses to get back on God's good side. Because people like me not going to follow it, so I guess I'll be left out. But I'm going to be serving such a petty God who's supposed to be above us as humans in character. And he's more petty than Miss Petty down the street. No, you're not going to get me to follow that at all. The other thing is, when Hebrew Israelites talk about themselves, or talk about, or identify, or the people they identify as Hebrew Israelites, notice how they focus strictly on what we have here in the Americas today. Yet, the Bible that they look into, and yet one of the curses is that the Jews, the Israelites, will be scattered all over the world. But you never hear them focusing on Israelites in China, or Israelites in Australia, or Israelites in Northern Europe, or Israelites in Southern Europe, or Israelites in the South Pacific. You never really hear them talking about that. As a matter of fact, I think they have a little chart that goes around and they show you all the various tribes, and they tell you like the tribe of, like, say, Zebulon happens to be the Haitians, and the tribe of Naphtali is the Dominicans, and the tribe of Asher, the Jamaicans. I'm not saying that's how it's set up. I'm just picking the names of the various groups and just giving examples of how they do it. But you never hear them say, oh, well, the tribe of Ephraim happens to be a group of people in Siberia, or this group of Japanese, or this group of Indians. You never hear them saying that. It's always a focus over here. But yet, their Bible tells them, the prediction was, you're going to be scattered all over the earth. But you don't really hear them focus on anyone else except over on this side of the world. Now, their narrative is, and their narrative sticks with this, that the Jews or the Israelites who ended up in West Africa, who eventually, according to them, ended up over on this side of the world in the Americas during the slave era, the narrative goes that these were Jews that came from Israel fleeing the invading armies of Titus in AD 70 as he came to destroy the temple and basically wreak havoc on the city of Jerusalem. Supposedly, Jews fled, ended up in Egypt. And those Jews that ended up in Egypt, I guess Ethiopia and other places in northeastern Africa, eventually made their way along the caravan routes from east to west and ended up over in West Africa. Very plausible. I've never denied that's not possible. But they focus on just that narrative alone, as if that's the only way Israelites or Jews made it over into West Africa. Yet, they fail to mention the fact that Jews have ended up in West Africa in various waves. And some of these Jews who came there did not come directly from Israel, did not come according to their narrative, Israel, Egypt, or Somalia, Sudan, and crossed over. Some of them came from the other way, and in more recent history. Because in the 1400s, in the late 1400s, Spain and Portugal, during their campaign to reconquer the Iberian Peninsula and take it back from the Muslim Moors, did win that back, did win the Iberian Peninsula back. And when they did, one of the first orders of business was they expelled the Jews that were living in Portugal and in Spain, or just on the Iberian Peninsula. Portugal, for example, expelled them and sent a few of them down to islands off the western coast of Africa, Sao Tome and Principe. Banished them down there. Sent some to the Azores Islands that were under Portuguese control at the time. I think they also sent them to Cape Verde. So here you had Jewish families who were expelled out of Portugal, who ended up right off the coast of Western Africa. Some of these Jews made their way over to the mainland of Africa, West Africa. Here comes another wave. So they didn't come from Israel and come that way. They came from the Iberian Peninsula down to the coast, northwestern coast of Africa, and ended up over there in mainland West Africa. And when they ended up over there, who knows what happened? Who knows who married into the local population? Who knows who came in proselytizing? Maybe sharing their faith with local Africans who converted over to what the Jews were offering. Hey, I like your religion. I like your stories about your God there. I like what you got going on there. Can I be a part of that? And remember, Judaism, at least in times past, was a proselytizing religion just like Christianity and Islam. In other words, they preach to you or they teach you to ask you to come over to their way of seeing the world and seeing their God. So it would not be surprising that you didn't not have local Africans who converted. So that's Jews coming that way. Then you had other Jews like Jews who ended up in northern Africa, like Tunisia, place like Tunisia, Algeria, those places, who ended up over there because when Titus invaded, if I'm not yes, he did exile, he did capture quite a bit of Jews. Some of them he took back to Rome, and who knows where they ended up. And that's another thing that you don't hear Hebrew Israelites talking about. These are Jews that ended up in Rome. They could have moved north to what we call Germany today, or Gaul, which we call France today, or they could have moved to Britannia, which we call England today. Whatever happened to them? And then Titus now, he did exile a few others over to what we called, I forgot what the word is today. I don't know why I'm drawing up, Carthage, which was in northern Africa, which was in Tunisia. He banished them because that was a part of the Roman Empire also. He banished quite a bit of them over there. That's northern Africa, northwestern Africa. Those were Jews who also found their way down into West Africa. Then you had Jews who left Yemen over there in the Arabian Peninsula, who crossed over into northern Africa, northeastern Africa, ended up in West Africa. You had Jews who left Iraq or Mesopotamia during the height or just right after the golden age of Islam in Baghdad, who came down to Africa and ended up over there. So many different waves of Jews in so many different ways, not to mention the fact of the Ethiopian Jews who were there even long before that. And those who may have gone down the east coast of Africa, like the Lemba, ended up in places like Zimbabwe. So you have all these various groups and all these various waves of Jews going all over the place. Yet Hebrew Israelites just focus on that one narrative, Titus, northeastern Africa, West Africa. Then they also do not mention the fact that you had West Africa. If it is the case that in West Africa there were ancient Israelites, Jews, who settled and ended up over there, which again I'm not denying. That's very plausible. When the Arabs came calling prior to the Europeans and their institution of slavery, the Arabs were there long before the Europeans, and they were taking Africans from West Africa and taking them back over towards what we would call the Middle East today. I would think that there were Jews in that mix also. There were Israelites in that mix who were taking back perhaps from places where their ancestors came from. We don't hear about them either. We don't hear them in the argument that Hebrew Israelites make when it comes to who they're focusing on, who they consider to be Israelites. And last but not least, unless I think of something else, this is another thing I mentioned in one of my videos. Okay, say you start with Titus coming in AD 70. AD, okay? Even though I don't really use that, I usually say Common Era, CE, 70. So we're talking about almost 2,000, almost 2,000 years ago. What, 2,050 years ago? Am I saying that right? Or 1,950 years ago, something like that. So he comes in. And if you want to start your narrative right there to say that's how Jews ended up in West Africa, all right, let's start there. Now, you mentioned these curses in Deuteronomy chapter 28 and all the bad things that have gone on, right? Well, here is something. Usually when Hebrew Israelites speak, they talk about what happened with Titus. Well, this is how it goes. They talk about the curses that Moses mentioned. So we're talking about 4,000 years ago. They may talk about the Babylonian captivity here and there. But then the next big event that they talk about is Titus and his armies coming in and Israelites fleeing, Jews fleeing, and ending up in Africa, ending up in West Africa. Then the next time you hear them talk about any event whatsoever, it's the start of slavery in West Africa via the Europeans. Hardly any mention about the Arabs who were there from, 500, 600, 700 years prior to that. They focus only on when the Europeans came in and brought us over to this side of the world. Now, it would make sense. I mean, of course, I don't know if you don't have a Hebrew Israelite in Saudi Arabia right now running his mouth and saying, hey, these black people over here are Hebrew Israelites and so forth. I don't know. But on this side of the world, they focus pretty much on the people that they meet on this side of the world or black folks on this side of the world. So my thing is, between Titus, and if you're talking about curses now, and you're saying that we're cursed people and everything, and you're saying that we're bottom rung and everything, between Titus back in 70 CE and 400 or 500 years ago to African slavery on the European side, that big gap in the middle, what were Hebrew Israelites doing? That big gap between Titus in CE 70, and the start of African slavery, European style, in the late 1600s, I believe it was. That's a good, was it the late 1600s? 1500s, somewhere around there. That's a nice chunk of 1500 years there? What were Hebrew Israelites doing then? Were these curses still going on? Did we hear about Hebrew Israelites enduring hardships? Do we read accounts about that? What I've actually heard Hebrew Israelites say is that these Hebrew Israelites founded kingdoms and they were rich and they were this and they were that. I hear all these nice things. What happened to the curses during that time? They went on pause and they only popped up again after, like, when we got to the 1500s, it's like God just kind of remembered, like, oh yeah, I'm angry at these people, right? Yeah, I'm supposed to be cursing them. Well, you know what? Let's send in some slave ships from these Europeans and drag them over here and humiliate them and put them through all sorts of horrors, and we'll be good. So it makes no sense to me whatsoever. These are things that I've mentioned. Of course, there are other things I've probably mentioned. I don't like the Hebrew Israelites to look into them. I have some other videos on there. You can look through them. There are probably some other objections I've made, which I just don't remember what they are now. But it would be nice for something for you guys to check out. Anyway, this video went over half an hour. I should not have been talking about it for so long. But you can go ahead. You can take a look at it. I'm a little bit so sorry if I sounded rattled and everything like that. That's because my computer over here is frustrating me. Have some issues with it. My wife's computer, I don't normally use it, and it's annoying using it. So I'm going to get back over here to try and take care of this computer. But this latest video, you can check it out. You can share it. You can come in and you can talk. All right? So listening or looking out for your comments. Subscribe, share. Let's talk about it, okay? You guys take care.